So here, this video will be showing the differences between the different DDC versions. Since I have quite a few of these pumps now, I'm able to look through all of them and see what the differences between all of them are. Right here on the left we have a DDC1 / DDC2 coil system. The magnet wire is significantly thinner than the one here, yet the resistance on it is exactly the same. I'll show more information on this later, but this would probably be the single biggest reason as to why the older DDC pumps were a little bit stronger than the newer ones are. Also, you can see the orientation is slightly different, but the general idea remained the same basically. So let me move these. Next, we're going to show the impellers. We'll start with a DDC1 impeller. Okay. If you look at the impeller, this will have the largest inlet out of all of them. Sizing wise, weight wise, and so forth, they've been all the same. Basically, plus minus just a very small variation to where I don't think it's really any difference. So this is the DDC1. Okay. Next is the DDC2. Has slightly smaller inlet hole than the DDC1. You notice the color is different. That's from a dye that was used. But otherwise, the color should be as you see in the middle. And a comparison. Okay. The next is a DDC3.2. As you can see, significantly smaller inlet, and the base, the bottom has changed slightly. Let's compare this to a DDC2. The DDC2 is on the right. The DDC 3.2, 3.1 is on the left. Same impeller on the 3.1 and the 3.2. I believe the 3.25 has the same impeller as well, but I'm not sure that. And finally, we have an impeller from the Swiftech MCP35X. Notice the top is blue, but the inside is the same color as you see in the DDC2. I find this quite interesting, but I'm not really sure without having to tear the top off of all the impellers what the difference is. So unless Swiftech or somebody else wants to mail in a whole bunch of impellers for me to take apart, I'm not going to be testing further than what you see visually here and what I measured weight wise. So here's that, and let's go ahead, since the impeller size is the same as the DDC 3.2, we'll compare this one to a DDC1. Okay, you can see a significant inlet difference in size. From looking from the outside, it looks like the actual inside of it is very close or identical between all of them, just the inlet size and the shape, so forth, has changed, but otherwise they've stayed pretty close to one another. And I will be testing the different impellers on the different pumps to see what the actual impeller changes. So the next thing we'll be checking is the O-rings. The O-rings are kind of interesting. All of them between the DDC1 all the way up to the 3.2 were the same black O-ring, felt the same, so forth. The only thing I noticed different is that the DDC1 had a slightly smaller size O-ring. Let me compare it. I don't know if it's visible or not, but it's slightly smaller. It lays on the, let me see if we can get, here we go. So on here, if you look, the DDC1 lays on the inside of this housing, while the DDC3.2, the DDC2, and all the rest of them lay basically in the middle, covering more of the area. That's one thing I noticed. Another thing is the MCP35X has a gray ring. Also, it feels very different. It feels like some sort of graphite powder is on it or something along those lines. And it's a little bit thicker, filling the entire section. I may end up measuring everything and just posting actual statistics, like exact sizes of each. But I'm not sure, since I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in terms of all of this stuff right now. The housings have been different. There's been a housing like this, to where there's nothing written here. Like this, where it says Delphi. And obviously, you know, the Swiftech one. And one like this, that just has an arrow. So there's a few different kinds. The only difference I've noticed between them is that the newer ones, if you look in the middle, it's flat. The older, the older ones have this standoff where it comes down in towards the impeller. I'm guessing this was used due to the impeller being with a larger opening. So slight change there. This one will not, and I repeat, will not work on any of the newer DDC pumps, as it will touch the impeller. These, on the other hand, will work on all of them. Okay. Another thing is the housing. This housing here, which is significantly more open than, say, this housing, is on the newer ones. This is on the DDC 3.1, 3.2, 3.25, and the Swiftech MCP35X, while this one is on the DDC1 and the DDC2. Okay. So quite a few differences in between the different pumps. Obviously, including that the Swiftech 35X has PWM. Oh, I wanted to note one thing on the DDC1. The DDC1 and the DDC2 are basically the exact same pump. The only difference, let's look here. Okay, this is a 3.2. On the 3.2, you have these right here, then it bridges over and then onto these two. If you remove this here, it becomes a 3.1. So if you have a 3.1, you can mod it to a 3.2. This isn't new information, but I figured I'd include it, as this is one of the differences that has been noted between the different pumps, and otherwise that's it. So as soon as I get some more pumps in, I'm going to go ahead and start doing different testing. The last thing I wanted to show is the difference between how strong the pull is from the magnet towards the coils between the DDC1/2, they were identical, versus the DDC3 and on. So I'm gonna come over to the side so it's easier to show, but here is the DDC 1. So okay, and then back in. This one's very hard in comparison to, say, this one, which just comes out and right back in, no problem whatsoever. So till next time, take care.